This is a clip from the Canon podcast. To hear the full episode and get access to exclusive benefits, head over to patreon.com/thecanonpod and sign up for just £3 a month.
Alexander Zinchenko is a topic going around Arsenal Twitter specifically right now. There's that one clip of, unfortunately, him slipping against Newcastle. And then I think Arsenal posted a clip as well of him just playing out of the back as well. You know, there's two types of Zinchenko. Defensively, we know about him, but also on the ball, he is sensational. Does he have... Is there any long-term concerns over Zinchenko's defensive ability holding us back in the long term? And is there other players in this maybe squad that Arsenal can move into that area going into the future? George, we'll go with you first.
People think I have a Zinchenko agenda, I think, when I talk about him. But the reality is he is just a player with pros and there's a player with cons. And there's a player there that we need to understand where we can maximize him and in what game states we can maximize him. When you leave Alexander Zinchenko to defend the flank 1v1, he struggles. When you look at opposition, by the way, in terms of what tilt or what kind of area of the pitch they like to attack Arsenal in, it's down our left. And also, that's not because we build through the left, which a lot of people tell me Zinchenko is there as a controller to kind of facilitate our build-up. We tend to have a little bit more possession on the right-hand side. Now, that should make sense because I think our biggest threat is down the right-hand side when we look at Ben White overlapping with kind of that Saka dynamic. It's been the far more threatening partnership and probably the most threatening kind of pass combination in the team as well. However, that still goes back to the issue, why is the left being targeted consistently by teams? And of course there's bigger space because Gabriel has to defend a lot more with Zinchenko going into midfield. But fundamentally, when you want to look at Zinchenko, I always ask people, forget the fact he's a left back in quotes. He's a midfielder. Can we just call it as such? Just because, he is a left back by trade doesn't mean he plays in left back positions. He plays in midfield. So judge him as a midfielder. Stop judging him as a fullback doing well to play midfield. He is playing in midfield, so judge him that way. And fundamentally, he loses far too many battles in 1v1 sense. So maybe the idea of a system, we kind of talked about it before, but when you look at Newcastle, Granit Xhaka was the deepest he's been all season. And when you look at that pass network, he's right next to Zinchenko. And when you start to imagine a potential Basmati Rice in the team, you look at that zone and you say, look, is there redundancy there? When you've got, let's say, just remove Xhaka and put Rice in that system, do you get the dual loss there? No. Declan Rice solves the error and the weakness down that side, but he also gives you the same, maybe not the same cuteness in terms of the technical ability, but he gives you the same progressive threat that a Zinchenko would. And that's the key. So you will solve what you lose there. Now, does that mean Zinchenko is over and George, you don't want him in the team at all? Yes, it is a game of extremes, and that is exactly what I want. No, he is going to be used for particular systems when we face a low block, when we face teams at home. He's going to be very useful in letting us control areas of the pitch that we want to. And so it's a matter of keeping the profile, but understanding you don't have to be hardwired to see that in every game of every season.
100%. And I think in terms of potential solutions in the squad, there is a certain player that I know that Alex likes as well in that role, specifically potentially long term, and that is of course the new guy Jakub Kiwior. I think that's pronounced Kiwior, right? Left back Kiwior as a potential possibility. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I just did a thread about this. I don't mind it. I think the gold standard in this kind of centre-backy left-back zone is Nathan Ake for me. So I look at Nathan Ake and I think, okay, what do you get? You get someone who literally pocketed Kingsley Coman in the Champions League quarterfinal. So we have someone who is an unbelievable defender, an unbelievable 1v1, someone who wins more duels than Zinchenko in the air, which is, by the way, not an easy thing to do. You lose a bit of invention. You lose a bit of progression, probably, but you have such a reliable and available passer in Nathan Ake, who volume-wise just gets it out of his feet and gets it going, and he's such a good defender that it's incredible. I think, again, it's about looking at every single game and going, okay, what do we want? How do we approach this? Kiwior, I worry because we haven't seen him there, so I don't want to just put him in there and go, yeah, that's the solution. I'd be interested in trying it. Why not? Try it in pre-season, see how he does. He's played in those zones before. I'm up for it. He's got the athleticism, certainly. I worry about him passing over short distances. I think his long passing is really, really good, but just I haven't seen him under loads and loads of pressure in those areas. Not to say he can't do it, I just don't know. But someone like a Nathan Ake in that role, the kind of centre-backy left-back who can roll into the three. There's also other solutions you can look at. is it that we buy almost a Zinchenko analog on the right hand side, and that becomes a different thing where if you look at Man City, especially at the beginning of the season before they lost Joao Cancelo, they were able to invert on both sides. They can invert on their left and their right, and we can't do that. Well, we can with Ben White, but not to the same level. So it's all about. I use this analogy sometimes. It's like on Football Manager when you like assigning your profile numbers, and you're like you have to select a certain amount, and you're going to lose something somewhere else if you put something in somewhere else. So it's all a fine balance. If you take Zinchenko out of the team, you lose ball progression in that area. But if you put Rice in there, is there enough ball progression from him to when he's winning those duels? So do we need to worry about that? Could we have a more traditional left back? I don't know. So it's all open for debate. And I think the biggest cog that I would change is Rice, which then for me does change our left-hand side dynamics. I think our left-hand side will be slightly different, a little bit more secure. I think Rice could even do that thing that Xhaka does at times and dropping in almost in the left-back slot. I think it could work. Why not? Let's see it. So I don't know. But what I would say is having a left-sided option, especially when Kieran Tierney goes, that can complement them, which also could be Tomiyasu, by the way, we haven't discussed, is important. It's very important because I think the one thing I will say is a lot of it's subjective. The only thing that I would say is objective is there are certain games I don't want Zinchenko to start. I have to say.
Look, I think Mikel Arteta understands Zinchenko's defensive liability. That there's a reason why his first target actually was Alessandro Martinez, who I think is almost the best of both worlds. He can defend, but also very secure on the ball as well. I find it very weird though, is in terms of Arsenal targets, it's actually right backs that are the most prominent. They're not even in terms of right centre backs. So is it an idea that Mikel wants to sign a right back to maybe move Tomiyasu centre back and have Kiwior move left back? There's a lot of versatility there. What do you think the plan is, George? Have you got an idea?
Thanks for checking out the Canon Podcast. To get full episodes and access to exclusive benefits, head over to patreon.com/the Canon Pod and sign up for just £3 a month.